Thank you for joining me here live on the African Reform Movement channel, where we discuss everything African reform with an emphasis on Ghana. As always, I'm your host, Uche Noka, and we'll be joined shortly by Dr. Nii Amudaka, who's got another topic about the 2022 budget. If you're watching us here for the very first time, you're welcome. Thank you for joining us. Dr. Nii has a number of social media platforms which he's happy to connect with you on. If you don't have a chance to write these down, no problem. They're in his description box on his YouTube channel. So I just want to make you aware that they are there, okay? We ask that everyone watching, if you have a question, please send it during the live stream. If you send it in after the live stream, unfortunately, as Dr. Nii is a very busy man, he will not be able to answer you, okay? So please, any question, don't think that it's too silly or it's too small or it's too simple. We'd love to hear from you. We'd love to hear your thoughts and your feelings about the subject. So please send them in live. That'd be great. And for those of you who don't know, Dr. Nii is an author, and he has a number of books at his Book Nook store. You'll have heard him mention the Fifth Republic. If you go back and watch some of his earlier broadcasts, he's mentioned a book called The Fifth Republic several times. That's his own book, and it can be published at his Book Nook store here. Again, this information is found at his YouTube channel under the description box. Dr. Nii also has his own website, sankofaafrica.com, where he at length writes about all the different situations that are happening in Ghana. And you can also contact him there if you have any thoughts concerning what it is that he's written and you want to have any further input or develop his thoughts on those. So today's topic is a 2022 budget matters arising. So just going to bring Dr. Nii on. Okay, Dr. Nii, can you hear me?
Oh, hello. Hey, how are you, Uche, and the general audience? Thank you very much for your introduction.
No problem. So I've let them know we're talking about the 2022 budget matters arising. So
yeah, very important. Probably the most important topic for the whole year. Because you know, I struggled a little bit to get this topic because so many things were going through my mind. One is a big one. Two, it's critical, and three is controversial. I know it's going to be very, very controversial. In fact, I know that I'm going to stamp on some landmines as I go through this particular topic. So far with the budget, I've written 10 articles. I've actually written about 10,000 words. I'm planning to convert that into a small book. And the title is the next slide, the first slide.
Okay. So of the articles you've written, what has the feedback been?
Very interesting. Very interesting. Very, very interesting. People have added a little bit here and there. Okay. And that's why I want to compile it into a book.
Okay.
And the budget that unravels the past and predicts the future. The budget that unravels the past and predicts the future. I've been quite familiar with Ghanaian budget for some time now, and I think this is probably the most important budget.
Just bear with us 1 second. Watch it, just 1 second.
It really brings to the fore the fundamental flaws in the Ghanaian system, the historical flaws in the Ghanaian system. And what I want people to understand is that this budget does not stand on its own. It's a culmination of budgets from 1957 that has brought us this far. You know, it's very much like Nana Akufo-Addo budget or Nana Akufo government has made a bad situation worse. It's going to be very difficult to comment fully on this budget without going back to the past. Next slide, please. The past. You know, like we always, when we're watching football or we are watching tennis, The good commentators do not talk only about the players playing, but they talk about the history of the tournament and the history of the players playing. And then they go head to head between two players. How many times they've played, how many times they've won, this person has won, the other person has won. And they talk about so many things connected with the particular game. And we cannot treat politics and economics any different because it's a it's a continuum. What we are seeing today, you don't start today. Ghana was not born today. Ghana has had its 63 or whatever years already. So we have to see the impact of the first budget on this particular budget. And it's not just a matter of budget, but we have to look at what does the budget try to define. The budget tries to define the economic model, the economic scenario. So we have to look at how did you get to this point. We'll start with Kwame Nkrumah. And that's why I think I'll be landing on some landmines because, you know, people get easily febrile when you're talking to the point that some of them get febrile convulsions. You know, when you talk about Nkrumah, but we are not going to go any far. We are not going to correct the mistakes if we do not talk about him. It gives nobody pleasure to talk about anybody. No Nkrumah, no Buzia, no Ankara. But as a country, we have to understand where everything began. And that's the only way we can talk about the future in very constructive terms. Now, what was the economic situation like when Nkrumah took over in 1950s, fully over 1957? You see, the British, we have to give it to them that it's not magical. It's not by chance that they colonized 53 countries in the world, including the second largest country, that was India. In fact, at that time, it was the largest country because then there was no Pakistan, there was no Bangladesh, it was all one India. They had a way of doing things, they still had a way of doing things. You see, in Ghana, or generally, they have what they call the indirect indirect rule. Now, the indirect rule is that they use local chiefs as the fulcrum of their local government. Okay, they govern through the chiefs because they believe the chiefs knew their people best. The chiefs had the respect of their people, and the people do not easily attack the chiefs. There is such reverence for chiefs that the best way for them to govern the people without much rancor was to use the chiefs as their front men. Okay, that was how they ran their political system, indirect rule. When it came to economics, it was the same. They had again indirect rule in the economy. You see, when you come to Australia or you are in UK, you realize that in Australia you have Woolworth, Coles, you have them almost every single suburb. You have all these big everywhere. They do the retailing. The big supermarkets themselves do the retailing. But in Ghana, it was indirect rule. They used the women. You have UAC, UTC, CFAO, you have all these big companies, but the real retailing was shared. I mean, it was with the women. They did not actually go to all these corners in the no. The women will come to them, take their stuff from them, go and sell, so that they maintain very thin, very thin stuff. And for them, that is very important because they came to the East part for money. They're not going to use their money on salaries and pension and things if the local people were prepared to do it. Okay, so clearly they had this mind, and for them it was very important because when there was a problem, it wasn't only them that would be blamed, but they also part of the blame would go to the local people. So they share the profit, they share the blame. Now, but more importantly, the economy. You see, sometimes the economy that Nkrumah made was a very, very fascinating one. If people know, when Nkrumah became Prime Minister of Ghana in 1957, our population was just about 5 million. That is even less than the population of Greater Accra today. Okay? He had less than the population of Greater Accra today to govern. Now, if those who know Ghana very well, they know that 41% of the land of Ghana is in the savannah region, not very appropriate for cocoa. And the same applies to the coastal, what they call the coastal savannah, the coastal part of Ghana. So basically, about 50% of the land of Ghana is not suitable, or was not, and still not suitable for cocoa growth. So you have 5 million people, all of them peasant farmers, no mechanized farming, and you have 50% of the land of Ghana. Okay, for those who want to understand, Australia is 32 times the size of Ghana. Australia is 32 times the size of Ghana. So Ghana is a small place. Yet these peasant farmers with no mechanized farming, limited to this small space, they were able to produce 50% of world cocoa. They were able to produce, no country has been able to produce 50% of any agricultural produce up to today. No country. But the farmers of Ghana were able to do that. So it was a working condition. It was a working system. It was a working system. You see, and this is where the problem is. If it's not broken, you don't fix it. If a system is working, that was a structure. You see, at the time of independence, cocoa was giving Ghana 68% of all our foreign exchange. Cocoa was giving us foreign exchange more than all the natural resources in the ground. More than twice the natural resources in the ground. 68%, you get this information from Nkrumah's autobiography. Okay, that's what I got. 68% of all our foreign exchange came from cocoa. But this cocoa was planted by peasant farmers, non-mechanized farming, in just small part of the earth. Ghana is such a small, tiny place. So it was a working system. Absolutely working system. And this is where the problem is. You see, ideally, when Nkrumah came, there was this big thing giving us so much money. The government intervention should not be to compete with the farmers because it was a working system. What it should have done was actually to go into, if government wanted to be involved, to go into research, to improve the seed and the yield. As we are speaking today, the yield per acre of cocoa is 3 times in Indonesia compared to Ghana. So if 1 acre will give 1 ton in Ghana, 1 acre will give 3 tons in Indonesia because of research and better seeds. So you see, now you come and meet a working situation. And instead of encouraging and researching into making it better, government decided that you're also going to go into farms, state farms, to compete. What people do not fully understand is that if a cocoa farmer gets a bad harvest, that cocoa farmer goes home and suffers with family. When a state farm gets a bad harvest, government will still have to pay the workers. Because whether the farm works well or doesn't work well, the workers there are state employees and they have to be paid. So then the money from the cocoa farmer, which is meant to be used for something else, will be used to pay these other workers whose farms are not working. Now, in that time, it became a drain. And not only that, all the state farms became, in the first year of operating the state farms, Ghana lost 23 million pounds. From 63, 64, 65, the losses were just increasing. because
Was it because of the reasons you stated, or was it for other reasons they were making such losses?
well, because you're starting something that you don't even have the managerial skills to manage.
Oh, dear.
You see, but for him, it was ideological. Because, like he described himself in his autobiography, he called himself a non-denominational Marxist. So he was a Marxist. And the state must control. So what was working before, he intervened. And the result was losses, perennial losses, until it was overthrown. Now, what I'm saying is this: he did not actually transform the structure of the economy. Because, you see, when you have come to meet a system which was working, which was giving money, which has given us 200 million pounds in reserves, and was giving more money, he actually wrote 68% of our foreign came from cocoa at the time of independence. The least you can do, the least you could do was to encourage them and help them with research and stuff like that. You don't come onto the market to compete with them. Because when crops fail, you still have to pay your workers. Now, these are people who have been doing this so well that although they are small scale, they were doing very, very well. You don't have the skills, you don't have the material, whatever. Things were spread all over the place. The result was losses. All right. So now this when the problem started. When there were losses, well, money has to be borrowed to make up.
Right.
All right. At the end of it, you see, people struggle to understand. The other thing, someone will stand up, oh, by build schools and da. But who should build the schools? My grandmother? And the man has the money of the state. So who should build the schools? But even the schools that were built, the what do you call it? The model was even there wrong. But today we're not talking about that. You see, if you know Accra very well, then you understand what I'm saying. You know, at the time of independence, let's say we have two basic schools. I mean, two types of schools: community day schools like Accra Academy and boarding school like Achimota School, okay, which was built by God in God's big. Accra Academy was built by local people for the community. Now, the ideal scenario was for Nkrumah to build Accra Academy, Osu Academy, La Academy, Teshi Academy, Numa Academy, you know, those community day schools, so that each suburb will have its own. But then decided to build big boarding schools, which sucked all the money. Because you know, in UK, the percent of people who go to boarding school probably less than 1%. Because it's not sustainable. It takes money. The electricity bill of a boarding school could build a new day school every year. The electricity bill alone. You have 600,000 students in one school, water bill, electricity bill, food, could build another day school maybe twice a year. And because of that expansion, there was no more money for any other thing. At the time I wrote my O levels in 1984, out of 30 million people in Ghana, only 32,000 of us wrote that exams. 32,000. When I went to university in 1987, out of a population of about 14 million, there were only 8,450 students in all our universities. Because there was no, everything was being served by the boarding schools. There was no more money. Very expensive to run. And that's why it doesn't happen in Australia. It doesn't happen in the US. It doesn't happen in UK. It doesn't happen in South Africa. It doesn't happen in New Zealand. It doesn't happen in the places that we look out for inspiration, because it's just not sustainable. As we are speaking now, most of boarding schools are now being partially subsidized or whatever by all students. It's not sustainable. Anyway, so we have this big problem. And that's when the borrowing started. By the time Nkrumah left the scene, we're owing about $1 billion. The 200 million pounds in the reserves have all gone. The cocoa money that we're getting every year was gone. And on top of that, we had about $1 billion to pay. How are we going to pay it? 5 million people. We couldn't manage it. All right. So the intervention in small scale business by the Nkrumah regime, because of an ideological thing, Marxism, started the problem because it actually hasn't worked. All right. Then, coupled with that, came the one-party state, where the party became equal to the state. Obviously, the economics would be distorted. Those who are interested, I want you to read this book by David Roney, Nkrumah, Vision and Tragedy. And there's a chapter, Led to the Left. When Nkrumah went to visit Moscow and he came back, and in his mind, he was going to build Moscow, was going to build USSR in Ghana. Very instructive book to read.
Who's the author?
David Rooney.
David Rooney.
Yeah. I've forgotten which chapter, Led to the Left. Very important to see what informed his policies. And it's no wonder that CLR James, his mentor and advisor, said he became wobbly. By 1961, Nkrumah had become wobbly.
Mm-hmm.
Because the policies were disjointed. Even Soviet Union felt that you could actually bring Soviet Union to Ghana. But the Ghana economic structure was different. It's been built upon the hard working of our cocoa farmers and our women in the market. Creating Ghana National Trading Company, GNTC, to come and compete with selling of goods and stuff like that will not work. It didn't work. But you still have to pay the GNTC workers. Mm-hmm. People were still going to the market to buy the thing because that's what they are used to. And then later on, you realize that later on at Champion's time, you also came with the supermarket idea that also collapsed because people will still go to the market women. That's our system. At that point in time, the population was so small that Nkrumah could have formalized and could have brought this market women into the formal economy. But from then to now, they are still informal. So they are not even being taxed properly because nobody knows anything about it. But the population was so small that at that point was when they could have been formalized, like we have here in Australia or in the UK, whether you are selling orange or you are selling mango, you still are known by the tax office. Mm-hmm. In Ghana, you don't. Nobody knows. So we missed that opportunity. Now it's become very, very complicated, very complicated. Because population is more than 6 times what Nkrumah started with. Mm-hmm. All right. The one-party state distorted a lot of things. All right. The next one, Buzia. Buzia was Nkrumah's arch enemy, or they were arch enemies of each other. Along the line, in the Second Republic, he became prime minister. And people, I mean, if you read the history of Ghana, you would have expected Buzia to be a game changer. Because this guy has been deprived of power from 1951, when Nkrumah won successive elections. And when the one party came with no arrest, detention without trial, and all those things, and Nkrumah was overthrown, everybody expected that this guy was going to give Ghana a fresh lease of life, that was going to do what Nkrumah couldn't do, bring people together, But he actually came not with one party state, but he came with one ethnicity state. This guy came with the idea of Akan hegemony. Okay, this Buzia man. His cabinet or his ministry or his government of 29 ministers and deputies plus him 30. Out of the 30, that it governed with, only 6 were not Akans. Only 6 were not Akans. There were 2 people from Greater Accra, my region, 1 minister and deputy, 1 deputy from Northern region, and 3 ministers from Upper region. There was nobody from Volta region, although Volta region had 2 MPs from his party. The Volta region is the second largest ethnic group, none, 0. Now, Busia appointed 80% of his ministry from his own ethnic group. At that time, he said it was only about 44% of Ghana. Okay, but that's because you see, his stablemate called JB Dankwa has said much earlier on in 1928 that Ghana should be called Akan land. And this is a simple truth. We have to actually speak the truth so that we can heal our country.
Yeah.
Because this country is in trouble. This country is in big trouble. And Boza did not only end there because of Akan hegemony, because of Akan control, which was what was in his mind. He brought the Aliens Compliance Order, where he didn't want competition from Nigerians who were there in Ghana. Okay, he came to power in, I think, September or October 1969. Within 6 weeks or something, he signed the Aliens Compliance Order. All foreigners must leave, but the target was Nigerians, the Igbos and the Yorubas, because they were then competing with accounts in the economy. Small business, he also came to destroy small business. Like I said before, in this Australia, 96% of employers are small business, and 70% of the GDP of 2 trillion is owned by small business. Small business is the engine of the economy. When you target small business, you are targeting the economy, you are destroying the economy. But they don't understand that. So what did he have to do? He's got to chase Nigerians out of the system. And when he finished from there, he had to chase others for a public system, public service. Apple 568. That was the code. Okay. Ghanaians understand what I'm saying. But we have to say it. Nkrumah came with one party state, Buzia came with one ethnicity state, and both distorted the market, both distorted the economy. And we have been recovered. Because you can't think that you spoil things and automatically they will recover. No. Then Buzia was overthrown by Achampo. Now, Kutu Achampo is a very interesting person. When he came, he said that he wasn't going to pay any loan. You say in Tree, in Tura, won't pay. And because Ghana was blacklisted. So of all the debts that we have in Ghana today, the only person who hasn't contributed a cent to our debt is Kutu Achampo. Oh, but unfortunately, when you have a weak economy that could not support itself, small business has been destroyed by Nkrumah and Buzia. Cocoa is going down. Cocoa production is going down. Then and you need financial support to run your economy, and say you won't pay, so nobody's going to give you anything. Then you have to print the money. So that's what Kutu Achampo did. Of course, it's your currency, you can print as much as you want, but then we went into hyperinflation. Hyperinflation, the value of our currency dropped into the bottomless pit. Now, because he didn't quite understand what was going on, he also fixed the dollar to the cedi. 2.75 cedis equal to a dollar. When on the black market, it was 70 cedis. So what do you think will happen? When you are paying cocoa farmers based on the official exchange rate, which was 2.75, when they know that the real exchange rate is 70, they're not going to bring a cocoa to you. And that's when smuggling of cocoa to Ivory Coast started. That's when Ghana dropped from number 1 to number 2, and we haven't recovered.
Dropped from number 1 to number 2 in terms of like cocoa delivery production.
Yeah. In terms of cocoa production, and the Ivory Coast became world number 1, and they are still world number 1 today. As we speak now, Ivory Coast is producing about 30% of world cocoa. Ghana, I think 22 or 25%, whatever. But we haven't caught up yet, because when somebody, government cannot pay the cocoa farmers the correct rate. They cannot pay the cocoa farmers based on the correct value of the currency. They fix the currency artificially low, artificially high, 2.75 to a dollar. It was $70, it was 70 cedis on the black market. There's no way a cocoa farmer will come and give his cocoa to you for you to give him 2.75 equivalent. He will move across to Ivory Coast and go and sell it there, because they are using the CFA franc, which is backed by the French currency. So that was stable. And that broke the back of Ghana. We haven't recovered. So now, all these things, we have not had any good luck to stop the debt. Achemo didn't bring debt, but the deficit was there, and he printed money to cover the deficit, and that sank our currency, and we have never recovered. Then the man came. But let me say it before I go. Achampong came 72 to 78. I did all my primary school under Achampong, and I loved Achampong. Okay, he was a very good man, but he didn't really understand he didn't really fully understand what was going on. I mean, the whole SMC, secondary school leavers went into the army, became officers. The death wasn't there, but he was a good man. Followed Dr. Achampong, Rollins came a little bit for 3 months, destroyed everything. Okay, demolished Mokola, complete nil small business in Ghana. All right, it is completely demolished Mokola. 3 months, havoc, emptied everything in the country. They were breaking into stores, selling things control, doing whatever. And unfortunately, Hila Liman had to come and inherit that. In my personal opinion, my 2 most favorable people in the history of Ghana are Jonah Champong and Hila Liman. Liman, absolute gentleman. I love Hila Liman. But it wasn't lucky, because Rollins was still lurking around. Rollins handed over to him, and Rollins came to overthrow him again. He didn't have chance. He was there for only 2 years and 3 months or something. He didn't have chance to do anything. He was grappling with the defects, the social dislocation and things that Rollins caused in his revolution. He didn't have much time to do much, and again was overthrown by Rollins.
Sorry, so just so I'm clear, for those who are not clear with them Ghanaian history, Jerry Rawlings came in for a period of just 3 months. When was that? And
that
why
was 79. June 79 to September 79.
Why was it only for 3 months? What happened?
Because at that point in time, the military was going to hand over. There were elections, and campaigning have been started already for elections in July. So when he came, he didn't change the arrangement. He said he was coming to do house cleaning. So he came and killed. Not he, but the junta killed the former heads of state and the former generals. He said he was doing revolution, house cleaning, breaking down things, destroy everything. All warehouses were emptied. They would come there, break it, and sell it whatever price they wanted. And then handed over to the man. He followed the timetable set by those who overthrew, and handed over to the man. Unfortunately, the man couldn't stay there for too long, and Rollins came back and overthrew him.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. So this is basically the past. All right. We've not actually developed small business as the engine of the economy. From day one, we were borrowing to support our budget without any plan actually in place as how we're going to pay back the monies we're borrowing. We've got a population of 5 million. We couldn't handle it. We couldn't handle it. Always living beyond our means. ideological, Marxism, bringing the state farms, so state-owned enterprises, or we didn't have the skills to manage those things on that scale. A lot of advice from people like Atta Lewis, the first and the only Black person to be given a Nobel Prize in economics. He was seconded to Ghana by the World Bank for 2 years to help Nkrumah transit from colonial economy to a modern economy. He ran away after 14 months because he told Nkrumah, Mr. Prime Minister, you got to govern. Then Nkrumah would tell him, you got to keep the political momentum. I know you've got a huge reputation but I'm a politician, I have to gamble. My business is to gamble, I'm a politician. Well, if you gamble and you fail, you fail. A lot of things, but let's move on to the next slide.
Okay. You said cue from sports. Have you covered that? I didn't hear you cover that.
Yeah, no, the cue from sports is what I was saying, that when you are watching football, soccer, they don't only talk about the two teams playing, they talk about the history of the competition and even the history of the teams playing. So we cannot talk about Ghana and talk only about Nana Akufo-Addo today. You have to talk about the history of how we began so that we can understand why we are where we are today.
Okay.
So I'm saying cue from sports. There is no, when they are playing tennis, they will give different information. When they are playing the Grand Slam in Wimbledon, they will give a different, because every tournament has got its own history.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
Okay, so that's a way. If you really want to do justice to what is happening now, you have to know how it began. That's the way I want to look at it.
Okay.
Then we have Rawlings, the president. He is the architect of the present. Okay. Now, I'll try and make it simple. I don't know, I don't have the exact figure of how much debt Rawlings inherited. But at the time he was leaving power, after almost 2 decades in power, our debt was $6.6 billion. Okay, $6.6 billion. Now, this $6.6 billion, Kufuor negotiated with IMF, with the heavily indebted poor country, HIPC, and 56% of that was forgiven. Okay, so 3.7 billion was forgiven, and we're left with 2.9 billion. This was forgiving us in July 2004. By the time Kufuor left office in January 2009, that is 4.5 years later, our debt has gone up to 9 billion cedis. Yes, it is. Okay. Now, then we have the Mills Mahama government. They came to inherit 9 billion cedis. By the time they left power in January 2017, the 9 billion has become 120 billion.
Whoa.
So every year they took loan about 14 billion cedis every year. Okay. People are saying, oh, he used to do this, he used to do this, but that's not the problem. That's not the issue. The issue is that what did he put in place to be able to repay this loan? Because if you borrow to build a road, guaranteed, you have to borrow to maintain that road. If you don't have money to build, you cannot have money to maintain. So at the time Mama handed over power to Nana, we were owing 120 billion cedis.
Wow.
2017 to 2021, after 4 years, Nana alone has borrowed 250 billion. Now, when you add the three, when you add the 3.7 billion that were forgiven to what Mama left 120, Nana alone has borrowed twice what all government in Ghana have borrowed for 60 years. What all government borrowed for 60 years, Nana has borrowed twice that in 4 years. So that's where we are.
Yeah, it's a very, very,
And
very, very, very deep hole to try and get out of. Very serious.
yes, yes. You see, when you buy a house with mortgage in UK or in Australia, every year the amount you owe becomes less. So there is progress.
Yeah.
There is progress. Eventually, you own that house. But in Ghana, every year the debt goes higher. In Ghana, every year the debt goes higher. I mean, this morning somebody sent me Fitch reports, which was actually published in June this year, before this budget was read. And they're saying that Ghana has some reasonable access to the international market. You saw Eurobond, $3 billion Eurobond, additional 1 billion has been approved by the budget. Now, and they were happy because they said this amount will be enough for Ghana's repayment of his loan and interest. They done the interest for this year. I mean, that we're supposed to pay, it was 3.3 billion. So they are saying that we borrow 4 billion, and from the 4 billion, we're going to use 3.3 billion to pay for existing loan. And then we'll be left with 700 million that I'm sure the boys will share among themselves. So from 3.3, we've now borrowed 4. And it keeps going. You're going to borrow more, unless they say we'll give it to you anymore. But that's where we are today. They feel that it's all right, yeah, borrow to pay back your loan. Borrow to pay back your loan. And this 3.3 billion is not the end of the loan. Is the loan for this year, the principal and the interest for this year. Next year too will come on top of the 4 billion that we borrowed to pay for this year. So we are in trouble.
Very big trouble, yeah.
We're in big trouble. Next slide, please.
Okay.
You see, and that's why I said it's the most important budget probably in the history of Ghana. Because for the first time, it's opened up everything to everybody. This is where we are. There must be a change. We cannot be complacent anymore. There must be a change. Otherwise, we will sink further into the bottomless pit. The youth are making noise. They are not making the noise as much as I thought they would, but they are still making noise. People are getting angry. We are not angry now, but we are still getting angry. The pitch is getting higher and it's getting more febrile. And I know that we are actually, like I always keep saying, this is the beginning of the end. This is the beginning of the end of the Fourth Republic. So what does the future hold? The future is ARM and the Fifth Republic. We need a change that will go back to 57 and correct all the fundamental flaws. No change of government, change of system. Change of system, change of consciousness, change of the political economy, change of the constitution, the enabler. We need a fundamental change to the way we do things. Einstein said something. He said that if you do the same thing the same way and expect different results, that's what he described as insanity. We can't do the same thing and think we're going to get different results. Because, like I told you before, when you buy a house on mortgage, every year you pay less, but every month your outstanding money is less. But in Ghana, every year our debt is higher. So there's a fundamental problem. This is not a mortgage. We are not paying anything off. We are not paying anything off. We are accumulating more debts. We need a major change. And that change cannot be cosmetic. It has to go to the foundation of the country. You got to uproot it and place a new one in. We need a free republic. I was talking about it, I've written about it, so I'm not going to go too much into it now. We need a fair state. Nkrumah came with a one-party state, Buddha came with a one-ethnicity state. Now we need a fair state. We need the fair state. We need GMT economics. Godisberg, Makala Touch economics, that I spoke about before. You create before you share. You live within your means. You save for the future. You invest in education. What are the other one? There were 7. Yeah, the other ones are there. The other, you can tell me the other 3. I've mentioned 4 or 5, whatever. But we need a GMT economics because we got to go back to the basics to build. To build. Oh yeah, the other one is that you build only what you can sustain,
right,
and maintain. You have to build what you can sustain and maintain. So you create before you share. You build what you can maintain. You live within your means. You save for the future. You invest in education. What are the other ones? I've forgotten the other 2, but they are there.
Okay. Was law and order not one of them? No? Wasn't law and order? No?
Oh, yes. Law and order. Law and order, rule of law. Thank you very much. Rule of law. Yes, good. Now, then we need GMT economics because that's the fundamental thing. Any woman who understands the problem of running a home will be close to understand the problem of running a country, said Margaret Thatcher. Oh, yeah. The other thing is honest day's work and 100 days pay. That's a 7th one. Yes. You go to work, you go and do your best, and when you get money, you know that you have been paid properly. You don't cheat the states. And then also civil responsibility, pay your dues, you pay your bills on time, help the police, rule of law, civic responsibility. These are the fundamentals of building a prosperous nation. But these are things that are completely absent in Ghana. Not one. Not one. We don't care before we share, we go and borrow, overinflate, and build shoddy things. We don't live within our means. We are not investing into the future. We are not saving. We are actually accumulating debt for the future, for the next generation to come and pay. No rule of law. We do whatever we like. We are not doing any of the 7 cardinal points of GMT economics. So we're not going to prosper. We need fundamental change. And Afro-economics. Afro-economics is Africa is economics made in African, economics brewed in African ports. Afro-economics. That's a whole book that I will not talk too much about here. Okay, because it will take a whole day. Very much like Afro-democracy, or is a Afro-democracy equivalent in economics. Okay, so now next slide, please. Australia, a fair state, I know. I thank God for bringing me to this country. If there's one thing I'll thank God for, is bringing me to this country. Because sometimes when God wanted Moses to build a tabernacle, when God wanted Moses to build a tabernacle, he did not tell him in a dream what to do. He asked him to go to this place, and God, opened the heavens, and he showed Moses a tabernacle, and he told him that copy every single thing, every single detail, everything that you see here, and build the same thing for me here on earth. There are some things you can never do unless you see them, unless you experience them, unless you live with them. You can never actually fully conceptualize and do them. So for me to have a full understanding of a fair state, God brought me here. This is a tabernacle. This is my tabernacle. And that's a tabernacle I want to build in Ghana. I'll just look at it. Fair political representation. In Australia, we have 150 seats in parliament. Okay. Now, every state, my state of Victoria is about 25% of the population. New South Wales is about 32% of the population. So Victoria has 25% of the 150 seats. New South Wales has 32% of the 150 seats. Queensland has 20% of the 150 seats. There is 20%. Perth has 10% of 150 seats because it's 10% of the population. Western Australia, sorry, not Perth, Western Australia. And that's the way it is. So we take 150 and we give each state its fair proportion. So there's no marginalization. Nobody feels underappreciated. Every state has got its fair representation in the national parliament. When you go to the national parliament, you see the demography of Australia right in front of you. And when I talk of proportional representation, I learned it from here. Of course, and in South Africa too. South Africa also proportional representation. Okay. Fair power spread. Now, political representation is like even more spread of power or division of power. In Australia, we have two spheres of influence, state and national. So every state has got its own government that takes care of core issues, core services, education, health, They are all done and controlled by the state. The state has that sphere of influence. There are some overlaps within the state and national government, but the core ones are done by the state. Defense, foreign policy, monetary policy, and things are the things that national government does. So there's fair spread of political responsibility. Military defense, foreign affairs, foreign trade, monetary policy, and those core ones are the preserve of national government. And the services, education, health, water, power, and those things are the preserve of state governments. So there is fair spread of political power. So that not everybody will want, in Ghana, we don't have that. Everybody wants to come to Accra to come and look for political jobs. But nothing happens anywhere else. 95.7% of regional tax collected are collected only in Accra. 95.7. No, nothing exists anywhere outside Accra. Because there is no spread of political power. Political power is concentrated in one particular place. So a place which is 1.36% of the whole size of Ghana is hosting almost 20% of the population. Over congested. And it's so skewed. All right. Now, fair economic and opportunities distribution. So together with political, spread of political power also comes with spread of economic opportunities. Now, in Australia, New South Wales, 31.7% of the population has 32% of GDP. GDP to population is 1:1. Victoria, 25% of the population, GDP of 24.6, 1:1. And the same thing applies to the other places. Why are they having the same? So once you have one-to-one population to GDP, you realize that one-to-one economic opportunities.
Mhm.
The money in the state is proportional to the population of the state. The economy of the state is proportional to the population of the state. So nobody leaves one economy to go to another to go and look for a job because it is proportional to the population.
Mhm.
In Ghana in 2015, Greater Accra alone, one state, one region, 62% of GDP was in Greater Accra alone. I'm sure today it's about 70 or 75. Because everything is getting worse. But what I'm telling you in Australia was not done for them by God. It was done by Australians who decided to give themselves the space to think about the best practice. To think that what do we do to move from here to here? What are the lapses? Where are the flaws? And it's okay, look, no system is perfect. Probably only in heaven we have perfect system. But when we say fair, we don't mean perfect, we mean fair. Where everybody, wherever you are able to progress and try and achieve your best potential.
Mhm.
In Australia, if your parents do not have tertiary education and you finish year 12, like A levels, whatever, and you get the same mark with somebody whose parents have tertiary education, like my daughter, the one without a well-educated parents will be loaded. Her marks will be given some extra marks because
Why?
he's seen as coming from a disadvantaged background.
What's the extra marks? You're talking about in what way? I believe in extra marks.
They call it loaded. There's a loading. They have a formula. They make, in fact, if you are more than 3 hours from the state capital, that
Mhm.
also you're eligible to be loaded
Okay.
because you are deemed to be on the periphery. You are deemed to, you know, if me sitting here, when I see a patient outside Melbourne, I get paid $9 more per patient.
Okay. Okay.
Yes. It doesn't matter I'm black or green or blue or whatever. That's what it is because they have to make sure that those people outside the big cities are not deprived of the care that they need.
Got it. Okay. Okay. Mhm.
That's what they call a fair state. It's not like Ghana where you forced to go to a place that you don't even understand the language. They feel you should go. No, you don't treat human beings like that. You know, because if you force them, they will tell you they have options. They will let you know they have an option. Yeah, nobody will force you. They will entice you with more money. So if you see 30 patients in a day, you get $270 more than the person who is in Melbourne. In a week, it's more than $1,000. You are going to 1,300 in a week. In a month, it's almost $5,000. It's as simple as that, but that's the simple truth.
Okay. So
So do you
that's with
want
regards to jobs. But did you say something about with
the
regards to exams as well? Did I misunderstand you?
come again?
I said that's with regards to jobs. But did you say something about with regards to exams? If someone's sitting an exam and they're from a poorer family or something.
Yes, they have a whole criteria to try and match disadvantages. Yeah, they do that. They do that. My daughter and her friend got the same mark, but her friend was giving, I think, 2 or 3 percentage points more because none of the parents have been to university.
I don't know. I think that's fair, you know, personally.
They were
With regards to jobs and everything, with regards to job situation, I totally get that. But with regards
the
to
line is breaking, but they've done it over and over. It's been reviewed and it's been seen to be very fair because when these children go to university, realize that the gap is closed. Okay, let me put it this way. I could afford private classes for my daughter, and she had it. Okay. Now, this girl, parents couldn't afford private classes, but somehow they got the same marks. So, so I actually preloaded my daughter's grades with the private classes.
Looking at it.
I preloaded it.
See, I would just say you're just trying to put your daughter in a position to get the best possible grades, so that she can
Yes,
get
so
what
it's,
she's
it's,
getting.
pre,
Yeah.
it's preloaded. It's preloaded because the system allowed me to do that. So now, after everything is done, what I'm saying is that they do this, and they look at it, the disadvantages and this and that over years, and they've brought a whole criteria to, in fact, with the COVID, they also did some loading because of the effect of the COVID, and it's perfect. What I'm trying to say is that even whatever it is, there's some people thinking that not all the fingers are the same. You have to help some people because they are disadvantaged here. They want to create a fair system for those who are starting from a low point.
Okay.
The mindset.
Okay.
Yeah, is the mindset. But in Ghana, it's the other way around. Complete other way around. In our time, in our time, if your father or your mother was a lecturer at the university, you are given 1 credit point. If your father or your mother was a lecturer at the medical school, you are giving 2 credit points. So for me, living with my illiterate grandmother, I have to do much better than the professor's son to go to the same medical school with him.
Yeah.
That's the opposite in Australia. So I understand the Australians.
Okay.
Yeah, because in our time, people came to medical school with 2 extra credit points because their parents were teaching in the medical school. They live on campus, all the books, everything, not with us in the ghetto, yet we had to do better than them to get the same point.
Interesting. Okay.
Absolutely, we had to do better than them.
Okay.
If you get the same grade as a professor's son, he'll be given 2 more points. So he'll go before you if you ever get there. I know people who couldn't get there because when the extra marks were given to professor children, they beat them. So they couldn't get there. So it's the other way around. So I understand what's going on here. But as I'm saying, you see, in the first state, this doesn't happen. Like Jesus Christ said, the one, the physician, the one who is well doesn't need a physician. Is the one who is unwell who needs a physician. Okay. So in that scenario, in that social system, the one who is vulnerable is the one who needs help, not the one whose father is already a professor of medicine. Yes, Christ was thinking of the Australian system to help the vulnerable. To help the vulnerable. And we have lost the plot completely. We don't do one single thing correct in that country. We don't. So this is the first thing that I know. I'm very confident about that. There's fair political representation. Every state is represented in parliament according to its population to the last decimal point. I mean, fair power spread. States government have their role. National government has its role. And the two complement each other so that the country moves forward with services. And then fair economic opportunities. the GDP of what they call the GSP. The GSP is proportional to the population. It's almost 1 to 1. So everybody has got the same economic opportunity in every single state. And this happened because people sat down and thought about building a fair state. It's not about one party state. It's not about one ethnic state. It's about a fair state. As we are speaking now, we have 8 states and territories. Out of these 8 states and territories, 5 of them are governed by Labour and 3 by the Liberals. Although at the national level, the national government is liberal. Only 3 of the state governments are liberal. And at the national level, Labour is opposition. But 5 of the state governments are Labour. There's complete. But in Ghana, you have one president and he controls everything, all the system. He created this small, so we have system completely, everything, control all districts. No spread of power. So when one person is wrong, it flows through the whole system. There's no competition. Here we have competitive federalism. We are joking. We're in the Fifth Republic, and that's the future. I'm telling Ghanaians that the future for Ghana is the Fifth Republic. The future for Ghana is Afro-democracy. The future for Ghana is economic federalism. Anything short of that will be sinking into the bottomless pit.
Thank you, Dr. Nii, your insight as always. Okay. Oops. So let's go straight into comments. Again, just comments, not questions. Last
Please,
one.
they should ask questions.
Sophia says, I think this pertains to Achimota School. Even though I got better results than some from Saito School, I did not make it, but a cousin whose mum was smart to let her register with Saito got admission.
Yeah, because what happened at that point in time, in all fairness, Rawlings felt he was trying to equalize the system because the Saito is the public school system, all right? The Saito is the public school system, and then the private school. Now, he realized that it was only in Ghana that to go to secondary school, you have to do exams, subjects of which were not taught in the public school. Okay, so generally speaking, the students from public school were doing worse because they actually did not study the subjects that needed to be passed for the common entrance. So then Rawlings decided that, okay, 280 in private school equals 260 in public school. So if you get 275 from private school and somebody gets 260 from public school, that person may be given the opportunity because the assumption, very much like the Australian one, the assumption is that if you could go to private school and still get 275, if you are going to public school, maybe you have gotten 240 because you have been preloaded. So that's what happened. Not only at Chimotan, but it happened across board. I think that started around 1982, 83. That's what Rawlings started to try and bridge the gap between admissions into secondary schools, which are all public. So you have public secondary schools, but those who were going there were from private schools. When the private schools were called preparatory school, they prepare you to go to secondary school. So all they do there is to teach you how to pass your common entrance. Meanwhile, the public school is not to prepare you to go to secondary school. It will prepare you to finish middle school and be a messenger at the ministries. All right, so it was a bit crude because, like Sophia said, very smart people, they will let their children go to private school, but they'll go and see the common entrance in the public school. So then they will get high marks for common entrance, and then they go to Achimota school, or they go to pre-tech. All right. So it wasn't the idea was good, but the implementation was bad.
Yeah. I hear that. Okay. You made a comment earlier about the youth not making noise and or not speaking about something. And she said the youth are not making noise because they fully don't understand the dire situation like you're explaining it.
Yes, I mean partly that they are still under the spell of partisan politics. Some of them are still under the spell of NDC, MPP, and now in this case MPP. So the inertia is there. You know, the inertia is there. They have overcome that inertia. But surely, you see, my biggest problem is that what will next budget look like? Because I just can't see. I can't see how the fundamentals will be corrected. Because we're going to print money, though. We're going to print money to finance the budget.
But surely they wouldn't. I mean, surely by now someone must have said to them that's going to like tip your country into the abyss. Surely, even if that's a suggestion that they should.
No. They know, but what are the options?
Mm-hmm.
You see, Uche, when empires collapse, you think the emperors don't know, but I'm something they can do. When the Roman Empire was going to collapse, they knew it was going to collapse.
But then,
you think that, but what's going on? But it happens. It happens.
But knowing that printing money is not the best way to do it, why would they go ahead and do that?
They definitely know that. They definitely know that. But what are they going to do? They've lost credibility on the international capital market. Nobody's going to borrow them money unless they're going to be borrowed with very, very high interest rates.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so they know it's not simple. They are not, and that's why they brought all these taxes. But even with all these new taxes, we are still 35% overspending. Where are we going to get the money to make it up?
And so there's nobody within the current presidency who has the presence of mind to start looking at what can be done. Even, I mean, obviously not going to clear the whole debt before 2024. But even is there none of them that can start to think about how the president,
you know the budget for the president. The budget for the president's office is over 3 billion cedis. Okay, they should make it 500 million. Mm-hmm. They should cut 2.5 billion off. That will take pressure off.
They can, yeah.
They should do that.
Do you think they will?
They can cut money. They can cut money from so many places, but they don't want to do that.
And there's nothing, and there's no one that can get to reason them to explain to them this is the way you start to stem the bleed. There's no one who can get.
You'd be surprised how these people think. You'd be surprised how these people think. If you think they think straight like you and I, you're in the wrong business, my dear. It's amazing.
That's crazy. It's just. I mean, it's not just Ghana. It's like many other African countries, as we well know. It's just like, you're dragging your country to hell. Surely, somebody must stand up and say, "Listen, there's an alternative. Okay, it's going to be difficult. It's going to be a lot of belt tightening on our part, but let's tighten our belts and play our part in saving our country and saving our people. Surely, it's worth it. Surely."
Yeah, but it's not going to happen unless the people rise up.
But even if the people rise up, they're just people. They're at the end of the day, people. What can they do? How? It doesn't seem to me like so far.
You wait. Power belongs to the people. Never forget that.
No, never forget that. They realize, but do the people realize that? Do the people realize power belongs to them and that they should?
Yeah, like I said, the inertia because of partisanship and ethnicity, whatever. The inertia is still there, but slowly. All right. So, can somebody ask some questions? Somebody should ask questions.
There's not really questions. I mean, just commentary. I mean, the only one question was like, Sophia wanted clarification on the date, but that's the only question that's here.
Well, what did Sophia say?
She said, which year did you write O level and which year did you enter university? I think the dates I heard are wrong. Did you say 84 and 87?
Yeah, because in our time we have to do 1 year national service after 6-4. So I wrote O level 84, I wrote A level 86, and I did 1 year national service before I went to university. So perfectly correct.
Yeah, that's the
Okay.
only. There's okay. I'll read something here. She said, I'm enjoying the history lesson. Indeed, the people who do not know their history are condemned to repeating it.
Yes. You see, the problem is that even those who know it are scared to say, because you cannot say Nkrumah did anything wrong.
Mm-hmm.
You'll be in trouble. But for me, I can't be in trouble because I speak the truth. Now, anybody who wants to challenge can come on board. All the facts are there. I mean, I don't have time, but I can recite all the figures for those who want to know. So we got to do something different. We can't continue like this.
Kenneth Amenya says here, lots of relevant points made by Nii. I hope this message is propagated further.
Oh, I mean, I'm very glad you've commented. This is one of my very, very, very best friends in secondary school.
Oh.
Yeah, one of my very, very best friends in school. We used to sleep in the same corner. And
Oh.
I think he's a millionaire or something in the UK. I'm not sure.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, but yeah, we'll carry
Thank
the
you for
message
commenting,
forward.
Kenneth. Yeah, let's see if I can find something else for you here. With regards to what you said about President Busia, when he just made it a very his own partisan party for himself. Sophia said, "What backward man? All foreigners must leave." When he made all the foreigners leave, it was very backward.
Yeah, and that's what Buhari Ediagbon paid back in '83. It was a very primitive mindset, though, extraordinary primitive. That he came to power, and within few weeks, aliens complained that I lost my friend, an Igbo friend of mine, Fabian. Yeah, and their sister, maybe because that sister, that young girl, I used to check her, But now have Igbo children. But Fabian, oh, my best friend. Oh, I didn't know it was. I didn't know it was Nigeria. I didn't know the difference. We grew up. He was born in Ghana. They were born in Ghana. They were born in Accra. But then all of them had to go. When they said Fabian was going, I said, "What do you mean by was going?" I said, "No, it's what is Nigeria?" I don't even know. I was about 3 years or something. I didn't even know the difference, or 4 or something like that. They all left. They all left. When I was in final year '93, Fabian came back to Ghana to visit my grandmother. Then I was doing district rotation. So he couldn't see me. My grandmother couldn't believe. Fabian was still speaking Ghana.
Wow.
Yeah, he's an engineer. I mean, if it was these days, I would have gotten his number. Then there was no mobile phone to have his number.
Sure, yeah.
Yeah. How did he get there? He said the father showed him where to go, who to ask. And he said when they went back, they were speaking Ghana, they were like they've been to, you know what I'm saying? Nobody understood them. They were laughing at others. So he was still speaking Ghana. Very nice guy. I'm sure I don't know where he is now. Maybe he's going to be the next president of Nigeria. I don't know.
So just a couple more here. And with regards to them not being any Volta ministers, Sophia expressed her shock.
No, it wasn't only that. No water minister in Buzia's government. Then they decided to do a Apollo 568, chasing all evidence from the public service, from the public service, to the extent that when Salah was one of the managers at GNTC, Salah took Buzia to court for improper dismissal. Supreme Court ruled for Salah, and Buzia said that no court will tell him what to do, and he defied the Supreme Court. This is a man we call the rule of law, man of rule of law. I mean, he's a complete primitive joker. I'm saying it. He cannot go to Oxford and be proud that you went to Oxford and defy the Supreme Court. You cannot do that. You cannot say you believe in rule of law and defy the Supreme Court. And what did Salah do? Because he belonged to the wrong ethnicity. Because, we got to talk about these things. J.B. Nangwa had written in his book, The Handbook of Akim Abuakwa, that Ghana should be called Akan land. And that's the mindset Buddha came to power with. Out of the 30, only 6 were non-Akans. And Akans were 43% of the population. Even today, the latest census says Akans are 47.5. They are not the majority in Ghana. They were 43%. But 80% of the positions went to them. Why? So, look, we've got problems, all right? And we have to be clear that we've got to solve them. And we're not going to solve them by brushing them under the carpet. We should never have something like Busia again in our life. You have to read the CIA assessment of Busia, which was anybody wanted, I can give it to the person, published December 1970, just 15 months after being in power. CIA, who used to Busia was a CIA guy, it was handled by the CIA. CIA was so disappointed in Busia. So disappointed. In fact, they said that 2 things were quite likely. Either a coup or civil war from the Evers. Yes. It was all by the CIA, the former handler of Busia, thought there would be a coup. In fact, and the coup happened. And the coup averted the civil war. Because it was so obvious the discrimination against the second largest ethnic group in our country.
Okay. Just one final comment here, because we're 1 hour 21 minutes in. Chika said, not to mention that the Akans are not a unified, homogenous group.
Yes. You see, and that's the whole thing. There's no political Akan per se. Akan is a lingo-social or lingo-cultural group. They speak mutually intelligible languages, and they have similar cultures. They are matrilinear, but there is no Akan. The Akan concept actually was a creation of J.B. Dankwa. I can go into it in detail, but it was a creation of J.B. Dankwa. He tried to create a political movement that will bring them together and always give them a hedge. Okay, but there was no Akan. As a matter of fact, Akans to fight among themselves. All the Ghana wars, all the wars of Ghana people with Akans had other Akans supporting them. In the 1730 war with Akwamu, Achem, Akwapim, Infante, these are Akan groups. They supported Ghana to fight another Akan group. Akwamu. Mind you, I'm also Akwamu, right? I'm Ghana, I'm Akwamu. In the 1826 Katamanso War between Ghana and Ashanti, Achem, Akwapim, Fante, again, these are Akan groups. They supported Ghana to fight Ashanti, another Akan group. So there is no such a thing as an Akan like this, but J.B. Dankwa tried to create one because he felt politically that was expedient. And Busia came to implement it. And Akufo-Addo is continuing. Akufo-Addo is the grandnephew of J.B. Dankwa. The same mindset. All right, somebody will have to say it, and I'm saying it.
Okay, so makes a final comment before we go. Nii, come quickly to unite Ghana from Victoria Quarte.
Yeah, we will do that. The time is coming. The time is coming. We know how to do it. We'll do it. We'll do it. The nation records will put them to sleep. Yeah, we'll put the nation records to sleep. We've had enough. Okay. And I didn't tell Uche, but Uche, next week will be our last for the year because because 25th is Saturday and yeah. And next, I think I'll talk about heroes and sheroes of our land.
Okay, sounds good.
Yeah, so that everybody will end the year knowing the people who have made our country the way it is, even with all our problems.
That's a good way to end.
We'll start from Nana Kwame Nansa to Asumeni to Okankwe to Konfanoche to Osei Tutu to Tetekwashi to Yasin Tua to Kisley Hayford, Joe Kisley Hayford. We end it there. Okay. All the rest are political opportunists. All the rest. These are people who did something for Ghana with their money or their strength. All the rest, political opportunists who came to plunder. All the rest. Some have never worked before. Their first job was for the Republic, for the colony of Gold Coast and later on Ghana, whatever. But these are the people. They're not coming answer. Asumeni. There who Okankwe, Konfanoche, Osei Tutu, Tetekwashi, Yasin Tua, Joe Kisley Hayford. Case closed.
Okay.
We'll talk about them.
Okay.
Great people. Yeah.
That'll be great. A great way to end the year. So just to remind people of the book that Dr. Nii mentioned earlier, Nkrumah, Vision and Tragedy by David Rooney. Get a hold of it and have a read of it when you can. Yeah.
Actually, you know this book, you know who recommended this book to me?
Who?
Shike's father.
Okay.
Because at some point, I think they were trying to recruit Shika because they wanted to make a film on this book. Ishka can correct me. They wanted to make a film on this book. So I think she was being recruited to act as one of the characters. Okay. Something like that. So the father discussed with me that I said, no. And so that same day, I went to the gun bookshop, I bought one, and I read the whole book. And I went to Shike's father. I said, but why did you recommend this book to me? This book is damning your Messiah. And I said, is that what you He said the book it was quite damning of his Messiah and Nkrumah.
Oh, okay.
Then I said, Prof, how did you read it? He said, oh, Nii, cool down. Oh, God. I said, how did you read it? I want to know how you read this book. Because for me, it confirms a lot of things that I know and things I've said, you know. So I don't know why. He said, no, it's still important you read so that at least you get confirmation of what you think or you get, it distributes your mind or whatever. I mean, a scholar, so you can read whatever you want to read and understand the way you want to understand it. Anyway, it's a very good book. Okay. There's this chapter, Left to the Left. And then once you read the Left to the Left and you see the impulses that move in Nkrumah policies, then you understand where the problem started. And that book was forwarded by Akila Pasoya. He was my vice chancellor when I was in university. One of the most prominent Nkrumahis. So it's a very, very good book. I recommend it to anybody who wants to understand the Nkrumah mindset. Interesting.
Excellent. Okay, I think is it on Amazon? Do you know?
The what?
Is it on Amazon? Do you know?
I should think so. It's a big book. I mean, it should be. I bought a hard copy because I can't read from tablet and I'm an old man.
Yeah, and I prefer hard copy as well. I'm totally like that as well. Okay,
no, she can correct me if my story is not correct. I thought you were going to make a film on that. Is that correct?
Shika hasn't responded. She hasn't responded yet.
It's an interesting, very good book in a way.
Okay. No. Oh, right. Shika said the book is on Amazon, but Shika, is Dr. Nii correct in what he said? Let's see if she'll answer that.
All right, that's okay.
Yeah, more or less, Nii. Okay, we'll leave it there. We'll leave that one there.
Yeah. No, it's long time ago. It's over 10 years ago, and I'm allowed to forget details. I'm very forgetful.
That's okay. That's okay. Okay, Dr. Nii, once again, thank you so much for breaking this down for us. Thank you so much for your insights and your thoughts. Thank you to everybody who posted a comment or a question for Dr. Nii as well. We really appreciate it. As Dr. Nii said, next Saturday is going to be the last one for the year, where he'll be discussing the heroes and sheroes of Ghana. So make sure you tune in for that one, 11 a.m. GMT time, 11 a.m. Ghana time, and then just amend yourself around that. So thank you for joining us. Thank you, everybody. And I'll see you again next Saturday. Enjoy the rest of your day.
Yes, thank you very much.
Bye-bye.
Bye.